You're welcome to my Father Taught Me series, Volume 5, Series 20, titled Power and Authority Without Humanity is Tyranny and Terrorism. Beloved brethren of the world, MFTMS, my Father Taught Me series messages, are meant to alert the world on global and local spiritual developments and events ignorantly conducted outside the commandments of the Most High, our Creator, and the consequences on humanity in spirit, body, and soul. MFTMS messages, therefore, is not an intellectual exercise of the messenger, but rather they are messages received by inspiration of the Spirit of Christ to be freely delivered to the world without addition or subtraction to the context and concept of the messages as received and delivered, which messages are concentrated on just 3 areas, namely, number 1, the Most High, our Creator. Then number 2, Christ, symbolism of humanity. And number 3, the universe, the ramification of matters. You are welcome to Series 20, titled Power and Authority Without Humanity is Tyranny and Terrorism. Once more, let's break down the title into its component parts. Number 1, Power and Authority. Number 2, Humanity. Number 3, Tyranny. And number 4, Terrorism. So let's start with number 1, which is Power and Authority. Power is the ability to make others act as you wish, even against their will, while authority is the legitimate right to exercise that power granted by a social structure or organization or any other system. Power can be based on force or coercion, but authority is based on perceived legitimacy, meaning people accept the right of the person or institution to command them. Then item number 2, which is humanity. Humanity is being humane, to be able to feel empathy for another, project another's distress as your own, to do unto others what you would want them to do unto you, which is in line with the commandments of the Most High. The book of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 12. Therefore, all things whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, do ye even so to them, for this is the law and the prophets. Furthermore, humanity are acts which prevent eventual strife or stop whatever suffering is happening. Item number 3, tyranny. Tyranny is a state under cruel and oppressive government. Cruel, unreasonable, or arbitrary use of power or control, ruled by one who has absolute power without legal right. Item number 4, which is terrorism. Terrorism is the use of threat, of violence to create a widespread climate of fear to achieve maybe political, religious, or ideological goals by coercing or intimidating the public. The key elements of terrorism include violence, or the threat of it, the intent to instill fear, and a purpose beyond simple criminality, such as advancing an ideology or political cause through brainwashing and intimidation. Now, let's get on to business of the subject matter. Power and authority without humanity is tyranny and terrorism. Power and authority without humanity is the result of self-centeredness that breeds greed, corruption, and overreach, with a deceitful dexterity of a spiritual covert face known as tyranny and terrorism camouflaged. Such deceitful dexterity of masked covert activities are covered in shades of complicated, intractable politics to the short-changed victims of the world all over, irrespective of the type of governance in place, whether democracy, authoritarianism, communism, socialism, capitalism, and whatever have you, all of which exist only on paper and never in practice, and hence have their lowest common factor, LCM, as spiritual tyrants and terrorists, coming from the heart of man, stated in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 17, verse 9 to 11, which says that the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? I, the Most High, search the heart. I try the reins, even to give every man according to his ways and according to the fruit of his doings. As the partridge sitteth on eggs and hatcheth them not, so he that getteth riches and not by right shall leave them in the midst of his days, and at his end shall be a fool. Can anyone touch his chest to define any operating form of governance in the present world or generation where the abuse of power and authority in the deep state conduct of governance has not turned the power and authority into spiritual tyrants and terrorists in one way or the other? This is happening from the smallest villages to the largest cities of the world, from the smallest nations to the largest nations of the world, from the least developed nations to the most developed nations of the world, from the small leadership to the great leaderships of the world. How else can one explain the events of the storm of polarization going on in the world today? There are currently 193 nations that are members of the United Nations, having signed the UN Charter as sovereign member states. These member states are all represented in the United Nations General Assembly, which is the main deliberative body of the United Nations, as sovereign member states. The above sovereign nations came together as a result of the lessons learned from the bestial World War II, for which they all accepted the concept of all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. As soon as each of the 193 nations of the world that subscribed to the above declaration got back to their respective countries under supposedly United Nations Organization protection under its powers and authority, each nation with the above power and authority started new fiefdoms that bred tyranny and terrorism, a situation an author, George Orwell, described in the same year, 1945, in his book, The Animal Farm, that all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Instead of adopting in each nation the United Nations Organization principle of all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights, a hard lesson learned from the horrors of the World War II, the nations of the world, all without exception, secretly adopted the principle of all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others, including my beloved country, Nigeria. In the above euphoria of the fiefdoms of Animal Farm, the world ignored, neglected a very important event in the annals of humanity that affected the history and record of creations and the universe, touching on the past, the present, the future, and forever. This phenomenon was recorded in the most sacred collections of holy books called the Holy Bible, written and updated from about 4,000 years to the present and into the future, which book had survived all its detractors till date, in which, in wisdom, it was stated in one of the books called Job, chapter 5, verse 12 to 13. He disappointeth the devices of the crafty, that is, of worldwide animal farm fiefdoms, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. He taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the froward is carried headlong. Now, the chicken is coming home to roost, as the entire fiefdoms of the 193 nations of the United Nations Organization have gotten polarized under their deceitful secret adoption of the principle of Animal Farm to produce at every point of the earth power and authority without humanity, resulting in a catastrophic world of tyranny and terrorism worldwide. Here are the ongoing polarization of the world powers and authority as final products of Animal Farm fiefdoms of the nations. Please, for the sake of sanity, ignore whatever names of governance they claim to be operating on. Let us start with United Nations first more equal 5 adoption of the principle of Animal Farm. 5 nations were given veto powers, and they are China, France, Russia, the United Kingdom, and the United States. These 5 countries are known as the permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, collectively referred to as the P5, and can unilaterally block any substantive resolution of the whole world put together. This is referred to the more equal of animal farm. The intent was to build the Tower of Babel over the rest 188 nations of the world. But the Most High did this unthinkable to them. In the book of Genesis chapter 11 verse 7, I quote, "Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech." The above step was taken by the Most High to fulfill his words in the book of Job chapter 5 verse 13. "He taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the froward is carried headlong." The results of the above move by the Most High against the Tower of Babel are responsible for the polarization of the acclaimed powers of the World Five, who could not understand themselves in languages and actions and deeds. However, they've been polarized into two distinguishable blocks in the likes of China, North Korea, Russia, and others on one hand, while the United States of America, Europe, and the so-called Western countries alliances on the other side. All of the two sides above are offshoots of the fiefdoms of animal farm that says all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Now, here are the apex of the more equal animals in the context of Animal Farm book, which could be listed as number 1, United States of America, number 2, China, number 3, Russia, number 4, Germany, and number 5, United Kingdom, France, and others. The funny thing about the above listed are the facts that they are all preparing for proxy wars under a so-called strategic agreement named MAD Deterrent, Mutually Assured Destruction Deterrent, ultimately meant to destroy each other completely at any nuclear attack as a deterrent against any of the 5 nations. A club of the 5 now joined by Pakistan, India, and possibly Israel and the unknown. This club of animal farm supremacy scramble could unleash to themselves in senseless self-destruction the smoke of nuclear burning fires, using a most offensive and devastating armaments, all in moves to establish supremacy over the world that was not created by 5 nations, who gave themselves veto powers of the hierarchy of animal farm fiefdoms. The actions, which were prompted by fear and supremacy tantrums in the order of the animal farm model. The 5 nations that looked at themselves as more equal than the 188 remaining nations of the world. Here is a note of warning and alert to these failed enterprises of supremacy war, taken from the book of wisdom of the Holy Scriptures, a befitting allegory, O ye powers in contention. This is stated in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 31, verse 29 to 30. I quote, "In those days they shall say no more, the fathers have eaten a sour grape," that is, the 5 veto nations of the animal farm, and the children's teeth are set on edge. But everyone shall die for his own iniquity. Every man that eateth the sour grape, his teeth shall be set on edge. However, before we continue further, MFTMS wish to draw the attention of the world to a very important phenomenon, of which area the world hardly speaks about, yet it is the only proven way of peace to the world and the universe. It is about a man whose record on earth dated back to about 2,000 years ago. His name is the Messiah, the Christ, who lived the most spotless, righteous record of humanity ever, who demonstrated powerfully to the world about the life beyond the earthly by the power of his own resurrection from the dead, and taught us how to prepare for the eternal life of an eternal place called heaven, so that it shall be well with the world. And he gave the world his peace, which no mortal ever could give, as stated in the book of John, chapter 14, verse 27 to 31. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. Ye have heard how I said unto you, I go away and come again unto you. If ye loved me, ye would rejoice, because I said, I go unto the Father. For my Father is greater than I. And now I have told you before it come to pass, that when it is come to pass, ye might believe. Hereafter I will not talk much with you. For the prince of this world cometh, and hath nothing in me. In other words, the entire world, the entire enemies of goodness, they went and they assailed Christ, the Messiah, but they found nothing of theirs in him. But that the world may know that I love the Father, that is the Most High. And as the Father gave me commandment, even so I do. Arise, let us go hence. Unquote. The above stated Messiah Christ proved to the world in many ways that power and authority without humanity make people take deceitful, senseless decisions, only meant to further their private selfish nests of earthly net worth, at the expense of the trust of the people they oratorically pledged to serve with integrity. Such attitudes were described by Christ in the book of Matthew chapter 23, verse 27 to 28. I quote, Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye are like unto whited sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead men's bones, and of all uncleanness. Even so, ye also outwardly appear righteous unto men, but within ye are full of hypocrisy and iniquity. And now to those who exercise power and authority without humanity, they eventually turn out to be the possessed tyrants and terrorists without the fear of the Most High, and in perpetual opposition to the commandments of the Most High, with unrepentant spirit, serving as principalities and powers in high places in the serpent's kingdom of darkness, who are being prepared by the serpent as candidates for the hottest part of hell, as stated in the book of Revelation chapter 21 verse 8. But the fearful in this concept is those who buckle down at the slightest threat of the god of money, and unbelieving, and the abominable, and murderers, and warmongers, and sorcerers, and idolaters, and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. The characteristics and their embodiment of the above listed indulgences are directly related to the abuse of power and authority, which acts are called tyranny and terrorism, a very defiant step to deeply defile and undermine the commandments of the Most High. And they shall not go unchecked, according to the book of the law. The book of Matthew chapter 5 verse 18 to 19. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one title shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments, and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Unquote. The above was further emphasized in the book of Revelation, chapter 22, verse 12 to 15. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to give every man according as his work shall be. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. For without, that is, without means outside the gate, are dogs, and sorcerers, and warmongers, and murderers, and idolaters, and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie. Those described above are they that exercise power and authority without humanity. They usually turn out to be tyrants and terrorists of the society, the community, nations, and the world. Let us be clear about this, that whatever type of well-meaning intent of governance is in place, the emergence of political leader given power and authority, but without humanity, more often than not, end up being the money bags, supported by their master Mammon, the god of money, with a caveat of serpent's deep state rules that every recipient of worldly net worth, power, and authority must bow down first and pay obeisance to the master Mammon in the context and context for power and authority of the Babylon world order against humanity. Babylon, whose master's instructions are tyranny and terrorism to humanity, unto the people they have lied to, the power and authority oratorically stolen from the people whose dividend now comprise of tyranny and terrorism from the master's voice and instructions. As for the gullible people of the world, they have been tricked spiritually, like the serpent's trick with Eve in the Garden of Eden. This time around, through tricks of politics, through principalities and powers used to wield power and authority over their victims, which victims now have to contend with the principalities and powers described in the book of Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 12. I quote, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, that is Babylon world order, against spiritual wickedness in high places, unquote. Spiritual wickedness in high places are they that exercise power and authority without humanity. They usually turn out to be tyrants and terrorists of the society, the community, nations, and the world. These tyrants and terrorists are planted in the midst of humanity all over the world by the serpent, the enemy of humanity, which was allegorically referred to by Christ in the parable of, or contained in the book of Matthew chapter 13, verse 24 to 26 and 28 to 30. I quote, "Another parable put he, Christ, forth unto them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat, and went his way. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. He said unto them, An enemy hath done this. The servant said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? But he said, Nay, lest while ye gather up the tares, ye root up also the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. And in the time of harvest, I will say to the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them. But gather the wheat into my barn." Unquote. Given the pains and sorrows of tyranny and terrorism in the world, being inflicted unto the people, whose natural tendencies thereof are to cry for instant vengeance and judgment from the Most High, to visit these perpetrators of tyranny and terrorism, particularly in view of the injustice of using their stolen mandate of power and authority to devastate the upright of humanity. And Christ said, Let both grow together until the harvest. And in the time of harvest I will say to the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares. As the tares here refer to the tyrants and the terrorists, and bind them in bundles to burn them. Where they are to be burnt has already been explained in the previous verses. But gather the wheat. The wheat now represents the upright in righteousness for the eternal life of heaven. It's now said, But gather the wheat into my barn. May we be the wheat of Christ, gathered into his barn. Amen. Shalom. My name is Steve Emmanuel Mojugbe, messenger, author, Nigerian, MFTMSeries.com. Copyrights reserved. Thank you for watching and remain blessed.